One rookie that is starting to shine and make noise in rookie OTAs or in OTAs period is the Indianapolis Colts second-round pick, Adonai Mitchell. Is he coming for somebody's starting spot? We're going to talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Listen, I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man, especially on this Monday, man, to start your week off with your guys, the dynamic duo, DP. Today we are talking NFL Draft OTA conversations, right? We're talking AD Mitchell with the Indianapolis Colts, man, the rookie shining in OTAs. Then we're going to talk about a Drake London breakout. Yes, does he have a career breakout this year with Kirk Cousins in town? And then is this a make or break year for Jameson Williams? What does he have to do to make that draft pick, that first round draft pick, worth it for the Detroit Lions, man? Before we get started, DP, why don't you hit with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. A.D. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell, a lot of word, a lot of talk, a lot of word, a lot of praise coming from head coach Shane Steichen about what he's seeing from their rookie wide receiver, Adonai Mitchell. One of the quotes, Keith, Adonai Mitchell continues to flash his potential and made arguably the play of the day during a 7-on-7 period. Richardson launched a deep ball down the sideline to Mitchell, who, after beating cornerback Darrell Baker Jr., contorted his body to make an over-the-shoulder grab that drew a roar of approval from the offense. He's not even just that, and guys like just listening and reading about what's going on. Of course, we know that he fell to the second round, but there's even more quotes from Shane Steichen saying that the explosiveness that he brings and that he goes off the ball and wins one-on-ones with, he's been making a ton of plays out here the last couple of days, and really good to see those type of one-on-one winners. He's going to bring an element to our offense that we're really excited about. Keith, and I know we're both fans of Alec Pierce, but I think that there's a chance that Adonai Mitchell could end up being that other starting wide receiver with Michael Pittman Jr., who just got like a $73 million deal. And then you have Josh Downs in the slot. Reading and hearing those things about Adonai Mitchell, how do you feel about him now that we're getting ready for mini camp and then training camp after that? What type of impact do you think he could potentially make if he continues this type of success in practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good situation for him. And I think if you're the Indianapolis Colts, right, you're sitting there and you want everybody to get better. And the reason why I'm saying this is that how do I want to break this down? Like, okay, example, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, right? I think Juju, that 1 year or whatever, his biggest year, right? I think when he was named like team captain or something like that for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think he had 1,400 yards that year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was in a complimentary role to Antonio Brown, or even if I can't even remember if he outpaced Antonio Brown, right? It was still Antonio Brown being on the field, right, and drawing certain coverages. And so that proved to be an advantageous situation. Now, dynamics and situations change when we elevate your stature, right? So what I'm saying is that we may love AD Mitchell and say, hey, let's elevate him. He from wide receiver 4 to wide receiver 3, from wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2. You know what? Let's put him at wide receiver 1, right? But that may change the dynamics that he has to deal with, right? Just like what we're seeing with Juju Smith-Schuster, in the sense of the fact of Juju played well in a complimentary situation, which, and I hate to say complimentary, like, oh, he wasn't doing his own situation, right? Like I'm saying it was good. Like he had other pieces around him.
Teams
And
were
then
still doubling Antonio Brown. Teams were still
yeah,
taking him
yeah,
away. Yeah.
yeah, and that's fine, right? And that's perfectly okay. You were still getting your numbers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core was still really good. You know what I'm saying? With the both of them, and then I forgot who the third wide receiver was on that team. So I like it, and I hope that everybody elevates, right? And I hope that the situation that they walk into is that they have a bunch of different pieces. You kind of get what I'm saying? And it makes it hard for you to kind of key on one guy because I want to let's go back to the draft profile situation. Like, let's say if he keeps climbing and he's wide receiver 1 now. When he was drafted, or even the pre-draft process, DP, I'm gonna ask you a question. When you watch the film, did you see wide receiver 1? Like, I want to immediately insert him, because if that's the case, then I think even when in our draft thing, right, then we have to go back and we have to be like, man, you know what? He probably was in the conversation with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors as a plug and play wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I think, looking at him as a college player, coming into the draft, I looked at him. I said, all right, what am I, because when he was at Georgia, I loved the kid. I was like, man, he's got big time playmaking potential, everything, size, speed, leaping ability, route running. He had all of it, right? So he has the full gamut of skill set to be a wide receiver 1. Just at Georgia, it was Brock Bowers, Stetson Bennett. Like, the passing game wasn't robust. So you go to Texas. What I saw was, and I think I said it on this pod many times, I saw a guy that has all the talent in the world, but if he wasn't getting the ball, like in college, especially, he was basically almost not running full routes. He wasn't giving full effort at times, different things like that. And of course, those rumblings came out right before the draft that scouts felt that way. Some teams felt that way. Yep. All the stuff like that. So, like, I think in this situation, I don't think this is like, because they don't have an Antonio Brown, of course, for the Indianapolis Colts. I think there's going to be a situation where no one is doubled and everybody gets that the defense plays them all honest, right? It's almost like everybody's getting one-on-one, because, like, we're not doubling. We might play too high, because what is Anthony Richardson? A vertical, explosive, deep ball thrower, right? And now you're putting a shell or an umbrella on top of the defense. You're trying to limit him being able to do that, right? And force him to take those crossers, those check downs, and different things like that. But I think with that, then you factor in the route running ability of an Adonai Mitchell. That's where it's like, okay, now this is a guy that, especially if he's playing at the Z, you got MPJ at the X. These guys honestly could flip spots and play both spots, because Adonai knows how to play the X as well. Like, then you have a situation where you have Josh Downs in the slot. When somebody needs a breather, you can bring big Alec Pierce. To me, if Adonai elevates himself into that starting lineup, Pierce comes in as another guy that vertical stretch, big 6'4", 220, can jump, can leap at the catch point. He's not going to separate a ton. So it's like he's going to make a lot of those plays, contested. But with his, build-up speed, like, they have a mixture of pieces. Forgot about Anthony Gould. Like, they got just a mixture of pieces that really mesh together. And Jelani Woods is supposed to be he's healthy now at tight end, and he's supposed to be their tight end 1, which is another big explosive athlete. So this is going to be a very interesting and fun offense to watch, because I love what I've seen for Shane Steichen.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm pushing forward. Like I said, I started my dialogue, right, with everybody getting better at the end of the day, because I think it provides some type of balance. And I remember talking to a couple people when I was at LSU, right? A couple of former players played, long time in the NFL. And we just talked, we was on wide receivers. I don't know why, because they were defenders, they were defensive backs and linebackers. And we were talking about, wide receivers and wide receiver 1s. And we was having this conversation. It was like, look, there's only 7 of those guys in the NFL. That's what they were saying. Like, it's not a lot of wide receiver 1s. I want people to understand that just because you're the best you're the best wide receiver on your team, don't mean you're a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And we started going through defensive coverages, right? And he was like, this is a coverage for a wide receiver 1, right? When we start bracketing you and we start doubling you and you start pulling coverages, that's a wide receiver 1. And so I want to flip that on the other side, right? Is that if people going to treat that wide receiver 1 like that, right? Then like, okay, who has the talent to beat that, right? Like, we've went through this and said, man, we believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. can do this, right? We know that a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson, a Devontae Adams can do this. And so that's kind of changed my approach. It's like, okay, cool. If this guy can, be dominant, even if he's bracketed and coverage is shifted, because I think what takes some wide receivers out of the game and we see the shift in numbers, right, is if a defense decides to key on them, right? And like, you know what, we're going to eliminate them. The old Bill Belichick situation, right? Where we're going to take our number 2 and a safety, put that on you, and we're going to put our best corner on a second wide receiver, and we totally eliminate your passing game, right? So I just think that the Indianapolis Colts, honestly, I think it's a great thing that AD Mitchell is shining, right? And I was like, okay, keep this thing balanced. Like you said, keep Josh Downs invoked. Keep Anthony, get Anthony Gold involved. Keep Michael Pierce, at the situation he's in. And then you bring Alec Pierce in there too. You keep the coverages. You force the defense to be balanced in how they play you in their approach. So I think it's going to be exciting, man, with the Indianapolis Colts. Could do this, probably the best wide receiver core they've had in a very long time out there. And I think it should be an exciting situation. But DP, let's take it to Hotlanta, baby. We're going to the South. We are going to Drake London, man. Drake London, can he have a breakout year with Kirk Cousins? Is this the type of quarterback that he needs to have that breakout year? That top 10, number 8 overall pick, I believe. We know how 6'4", 6'5", smooth route runner. So can Drake London take that next step? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Make every moment more. Guys, right now, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Again, with any winning $5 bet, new customers right now get $150 back in bonus bets. That's $150 to bet on everything you'd like. For example, spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. How can you get on a deal like this? Well, let me tell you. All you need to do is go and visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. 2024 breakout candidate, Atlanta Falcons third-year wide receiver Drake London. So far over his career in 2022, 72 receptions, 866 yards receiving, and 4 receiving touchdowns. In 2023, 69 receptions, 905 receiving yards, 13 yards per catch. He had 2 receiving touchdowns. So he only had 6 receiving touchdowns through 2 seasons, but the quarterback play has been somewhat inept since he's been drafted, right? We dealt with Marcus Mariota. He dealt with Marcus Mariota. He dealt with Desmond Ridder. And then, Taylor Heineke's been in there. It's just been a revolving door, right? They've been playing musical chairs at quarterback during the tenure or during the 2-year span of Drake London, but now bringing in Kirk Cousins. And what do we know about Kirk Cousins? His entire career, he's been able to elevate receivers and getting them to a statistical profile where they are playing to their level of talent. So yeah, a guy that has never cracked 1,000 yards, Keith, I expect 12 to 1,300 yards from Drake London in 2024 because of the fact that you have Kirk Cousins. But not only Kirk Cousins, having a Bijan Robinson, having a Kyle Pitts, guys that are going to pull or make the coverage even, right? Where defenses, if you run the ball, which we know Zac Robinson coming over from LA, the Rams, and Sean McVay, you're gonna get that stretch zone, right? We saw it with Kyron Williams, who's third leading rusher in the league last year in rushing yards. You get Bijan Robinson going early in games. We know we always talk about it, right? You want to start out in too high because you want to take away any explosive potential plays. But when you got that run game going and your boxes, your defensive front in the box is light and they're getting cooked, you're like, all right, we got to pull a lever, rotate one of those safeties down, kind of load the box a little bit. Let's stop Bijan. Then it's like, but also we got to probably play middle of the field closed with single high because you got Kyle Pitts who can roam the middle, deep in cuts and in breakers and over routes. Then what does that do? Give Drake London one-on-ones. And for a big 6'4", 6'5" receiver, he's a good route runner. He separates well enough. Is he a great dynamic athlete? No, like he's not going to be a dynamic, just vertical stretch guy. But the ball skills, the body control, positioning, and everything that he brings to the table, I think he's in for a really big breakout season. Now he has an accurate quarterback because that's the big thing. You always talk about it. For wide receivers, it's all about situations. If you go to a situation with a good QB, you expect good things. Go to a situation where the quarterback play is inconsistent, you should expect some inconsistency from the receiver as well.
Yep, DP, that is that simple. Wide receivers are the most dependent position on the field. You can do your
Can't forget
job.
about Michael Penix Jr. either. I forgot about him just in
Yeah,
case
yeah.
something happened.
Yep, 100%, man. Look, you can do your job. You can run routes and get wide open. But if the quarterback does not throw you the football, it is all for naught, right? That's the difference between being a potential all-pro and then just a regular guy. That's the difference between $100 million and then guess what? Practice squad, baby. And it's that drastic. They just cannot get you the football. And we see, wide receivers change situations through free agency, right? We see different quarterbacks come and go in certain situations, right? We see them simply traded, right? And we see a big fluctuation in production, right? Production numbers. And we're sitting there, whether you play fantasy football, whether you're the fan of a team, whether you're the fan of that player, right? You're like, man, he's not the same guy. Well, it's like, you know what? It may be the quarterback, right? You don't have the same quarterback throwing him the football. So things are going to change. So what are my expectations, DP? I'm expecting a good year from Drake London. For him, with that, and we have to be completely honest about this, right? For the situation that the Atlanta Falcons presented him early on in his career, for him to have an 800-yard season and a 900-yard season, to be close to 1,000 yards, that's a very productive situation, right? And it's not just Drake London, right? You talked about Kyle Pitts, right? Who's another freak athlete who came out there, and I think he had one really good year, his rookie year, and then it kind of tailed off after that. So invoking Kirk Cousins, who is a quarterback, and this is why I'm gonna say I like the move. I like the move of them going and get Kirk Cousins, a veteran guy, a high volume passer. He's always fed his wide receivers. He's always fed his playmakers, period. This is a guy that gets the football out of his hands. And however you feel about him in the playoffs, right? I can guarantee you Drake London and Kyle Pitts are trying to start at the very basis. Let's talk about the regular season, right? Let's get numbers.
Let's get to the playoffs first.
Yeah. Let's get to the playoffs before we start saying that Kirk Cousins don't show up in the playoffs. But guess what? We haven't had quarterbacks that showed up in the regular season. So let's start there. And I can bet that they are excited about that situation, just them being able to throw him being able to throw them the football and like I said, being a high volume passer. So yeah, if you give me my outlook, I'm stock is up on Drake London as far as what he will be able to do in this Atlanta offense. And then the other thing is this, that like we always talk about the offensive coordinator coming over from the Rams, right? It'll be interesting because quickly thinking off the top of my head, I don't know how many big wide receivers that the Los Angeles Rams have had. Like I'm talking about like really like those 6'4", 6'5" guys. Not very many. Talking about movement pieces and things like that. But so it will be fun to watch Drake London, right? A 6'5" type of wide receiver operating his offense, and you got this big old wide receiver running these deep overs off of play action. Big target, and I'm expecting some run after the catch ability too. So I think it's gonna be an exciting situation.
No, 100%. And as you was talking, it's crazy. You went to the OC, and I was thinking the exact same thing as you were speaking. I was like, man, like what we saw from Puka and Cooper Kupp, even going to what Kevin O'Connell, right, going from the Rams to Minnesota, and that's the thing. That was why the pick or the signing of Kirk Cousins made so much sense. Because Kirk Cousins said, yeah, I know this offense. Like I know it very well. I don't have to learn it. I know it already. Because Kevin O'Connell brought the same style offense over. And what was the main thing? It was like, man, we saw what Justin Jefferson did before Kevin O'Connell got there. Then Kevin O'Connell put him in that Cooper Kupp type of role. And it's like, all right, when you put that level of talent with this type of scheme and how we can keep you off the line, we can motion you, we can put you in advantageous opportunities in scenarios and situations. Now you really get to optimize that talent in such a way that we haven't been able to do before. And that's why I'm really excited about Drake London as well. Because I'm like, all right, are we going to see some of that Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, just from a bigger frame in terms of, man, we're going to motion you into a condensed split, into a stack set or a bunch set. We're going to put you off ball, right? And you know what I mean? I did a breakdown over on the Draft Network's Twitter account of a player from Puka, a double move he had on like a 50-yard touchdown versus the Detroit Lions, and they started out in like a 2x2 set, and they went to an empty. And then they had Puka inside, and then they motioned him right before the snap to be in the X. And I'm like, you can do those same type of things with Drake London. And that's why I'm really excited to see how they just utilize him and fully optimize this 6'5", 200+ pound athlete skill set, because he is a very talented receiver. But like you said, he just hasn't had the quarterback play to consistently get him high, not just high volume targets, high end targets, right? Accurate ball placement type of targets. And now with Kirk Cousins, or like I said, if something happens and Michael Penix has to step in, you got 2 quarterbacks in your roster that can finally do that now. And I know that's a breath of fresh air in Atlanta.
Yep. Well, DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. And staying on the topic of wide receivers, I believe they're in the very same draft, right? They were in that 2022 draft. Drake London went pick 8. Jameson Williams, I believe the Detroit Lions traded up to get him. And he's had a rocky start his career. I believe it was an injury his first year, and then last year was the whole betting situation. And we're going to talk about, is this a make or break year for Jameson Williams? What his impact could be in this offense with Jared Goff. So coming up next, man, we're talking about one of the most explosive guys in the NFL, Jameson Williams.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Guys, the NBA Finals are set. We have the Boston Celtics versus the Dallas Mavericks, and that game kicks off this Thursday night. Think about how excited you would be. I know how excited I would be if I was a fan of either one of these teams and I had the chance to get tickets to go to the game. It would be a cool, fun, just great experience, right? Game Time can help you with that. They make getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Guys, talking about buying tickets, the tickets for the prices and tickets for the NBA Finals matchup is already on the app. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Make or break season heading into 2024. Jameson Williams, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. And Keith, yeah, you said it. They traded up for him in the 2022 NFL Draft. He was rehabbing the ACL, coming back from the college football playoffs where he tore it against Georgia, right? So he didn't really get a chance to play until late in the season, like 1 or 2 games. Things like that. Then heading into last year, the betting and the gambling thing suspended the first couple games of the 2023 NFL season. Now, so far, so good. This is the first normal offseason that this young man has had since he's been drafted. But the big thing about it is this, to me, is a make or break season. Because when you have an elite receiver like a Amon St. Brown who plays in the slot, he moves around a lot, he's the guy that they feed in this offense. You got a legit tight end in Sam Laporta. You got one of the best backfields with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, a really good quarterback in terms of Jared Goff, who's in that kind of Kirk Cousins category in realm, right, in terms of tiers. It's time for you to take that step. Because if you get the type of playmaking, like we saw in the playoff game against San Fran, right? I think it was the end around where it was like a wide receiver end around the reverse, and he gets the handoff, and he takes it for a touchdown, and that speed. One of the most explosive players in this league, Keith, all around, at any position. One of the most explosive guys. You start getting that speed going earlier in games, consistent game to game, not just a big play here, then quiet for 3 weeks, another big. No, you get big plays each week, and you make him an integral part to this offense. That's how defenses really are going to start stressing. Because it's like, who do we take away? Do we take away Amon-Ra? Do we stop the run game? Do we shadow Sam Laporta? Or can we play too high? That's when you put. I think this offense needs Jameson Williams to be that breakout candidate or breakout star for them, because Keith, it's going to force teams to play too high. It's going to open up the run game even more. But also for him, I think when it comes into that 5th-year option, teams have to pick it up going into the 4th year. So if he doesn't have a good season this year, they're probably not going to pick it up next offseason. And then you're going to go into a situation where it's truly a bet on yourself 4th year to try and get your long-term extension. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'll add in another reason why it's a make or break year. I'm gonna throw on my potential. I'll say this right, and just the mentality just from the rooms that I've sat in, right? Like you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, you know, first year, okay. I think, like I said, I think that was injury, right? Second year, sports betting thing, you're like, man, that was tough. You know what I'm saying? But I get it, it's new. Third year, you sitting there and you're saying this is a make or break year, and it's a make or break year from even if I want to invoke me being the like if I'm personally the head coach or the general manager, right? And I'm trying to construct a team because I'm looking at this depth chart and I'm saying it's a make or break year is because we need you this year. I look at this depth chart, DP, and you talked about this a little bit in team breakdowns. Yes, you have all pro, Pro Bowl, Amon St. Brown, right? But then after that, it's if you take out Jameson Williams, it's Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Antoine Green, Traquan Smith, right? That sounds like a wide receiver core that needs a first-round wide receiver, right? And they drafted you in the first round to be dependent on your skill set. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying it's a make or break year because a lot of what the Detroit Lions could potentially do it's kind of on your shoulders also because this can be a good wide receiver core or this can be a very average wide receiver core depending on how you show up for the Detroit Lions. And then this is the other part. And I guess talking to our listeners, right, that I hate to say it in this context. I'm going to say this. I was going to say that it becomes selfish, but everything becomes personal, right? And you're like, well, what do you mean about this? Is that when you sitting there and you're saying, I know what people are going to say about me, right? And what I'm talking about is this, that the Detroit Lions, great story last year, right? But because what the year before they was like 0-7 or something, started really slow, 1-7, had a good finish, right? Then they went to the playoffs last year, right? It's like taking that next step, NFC Championship game. Let me tell you something. The thought process, right, around the fan base, the thought process in the NFL is that this team has arrived. This is an NFC Championship at the worst team, right? And this could potentially be a Super Bowl contender team. So anything less than that is a failure, right? And this is what happens. He's like, okay, if we come up short, less than the NFC Championship game appearance again, then who's to blame? And then this is where it becomes, like I said, not the selfish part, but the other dynamic is that it becomes personal, is that I'm not trying to have this be put on me. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like if you're the head coach, you're the GM. So it's like, man, look, I'm betting on you to get the job done, to take care of it for me also. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like this is not just a you situation. We're all in. And this is why when you see players and you see coaches holding each other accountability, you want to know why? It's because I have a family to feed also, right? I have this to feed also. Like we always say, these coaching jobs are very rare in the NFL. Who knows if depending on how the situation, if any of these coaches are going to get the exact same opportunity that they have right now with the Detroit Lions. So I think it's very important. If you're Ben Johnson, you the OC, right? You like, man, I want to have the opportunity to get paid $12-15 million, and I want to pick my job, right? But some of that could be hinged upon Jameson Williams, you showing up, being able to be our explosive playmaker, so this offense operates at its very best.
100%. Even to add Brad Holmes, the GM, right? Like we watched him address a need this past draft 2024 twice, right? Getting two new young corners, a position that he needed to upgrade. Keith, if you go into this season as Jameson Williams and you're not consistent, you don't give them any type of hope for you to say, hey, we're going to give you a fifth-year option. You know what you got to deal with next year? Tatora McMillan out of Arizona, Luther Burden from Missouri, Evan Stewart, who transferred from Texas A&M to Oregon, right? This is a good receiver class we're about to walk into. You think Brad Holmes is not going to walk in and say, man, I'm about to get me one of these first-round receivers, and I'm going to continue to add to this offense, and it's either get with it or get lost? Because if you don't perform at the way we need you to, the team could go another position. Keith, go get another edge rusher for Aiden Hutchinson in 2025 if you show up Jameson Williams. So I hope he does, but there's a lot of pressure on him if he doesn't, because he could see his replacement get drafted in round 1 next April.
I agree with that 100%. And it changed the outlook of the perspective of Brad Holmes, right? And I'm saying if he hits on Jameson Williams also, you're talking about one of the GM of the year, one of the hottest, deserves to be outside of winning a Super Bowl with this team, right? Like there's one of the best general managers in the NFL, which I think he's proven, but you talked about elevating yourself to almost the guys that also have constructed Super Bowl teams without the Super Bowl because he's consistently hit on draft pick after draft pick after draft pick after draft pick.
It's crazy, and to your point, Keith, it's it's a copycat league, right? So people going, other teams going to know what's the secret sauce that Brad Holmes has.
Watch the film. Watch the film. That's the secret sauce. DP is watch the film.
Touche. You would think that should be universal across all 32 teams, but 100%. Teams are going to be like, man, we need a Brad Holmes in our GM room. We need a guy that's going to value and what did he do last year? Buck the whole positional value trend. He took a running back in round 1 in 2023. He had 2 first-round picks. He took a linebacker, the two most devalued positions.
And a safety. He went the trio. He hit the trifecta in 2023. So he didn't stop, man. With DP,
the fans said they didn't need a tight end, Keith, and he went tight end, and now they happy.
It went tight. What is that? The trifecta? A quadruple? I don't know, because that's another deep value position, right? He knocked it out across the park, man. But DP, what's being knocked out, man, is the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, where we are producing great content over here. I want to say shout out to everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. And everyday shot for being our everyday is on tomorrow's show. Tuesday starts the scouting notebook, guys. It's summer scouting time. We're going to bring our prospects, our notes, and we're going to let you know who you need to be paying attention to ahead of the 2024 college football season and the 2025 NFL Draft. That starts on tomorrow. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.